and welcome back to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the Elite Football Show. My name is Haider, and I'm your host as ever today. Manchester United are playing tomorrow night against Sheffield United. Massive, massive game for us. And to talk through it with me is Ciaran, Joe, and Marc. How are you boys doing today, and how excited are you for tomorrow? Because United win this, Ciaran, we're looking quite pretty in the table, and we're looking like we can really, really force, well, I don't want to say it, maybe a title charge.
It's a tough one, but look, it's against Sheffield United. If you don't win that game, then there's serious questions to be asked. They only have 1 point in the entire season. Doesn't matter who they played against. Their performances have been pretty bad. So, look, anyone should be expecting a win tomorrow night. And look, it's one of those. If it doesn't, then I'd say everybody will be raging for about a week. And look, I think all of the fixtures thus far, I know tonight there's still a couple more to go, but have all gone in our favour.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Jamie. Hello, mate. Good to see you as always. Bits and Bobs, my man. He's got the best opening line ever, guys. You haven't seen it, check out his channel. He's doing some mad work. Thanks, mate. And good to see you here. Joe, how are you feeling? Because I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I can't lie to you. United usually fall and trip up in the games that we're meant to be winning, aka Sheffield United. 1 point in the whole of the season for them so far. It's just set up, isn't it, for them to get a victory against United, or at least turn up and put in a performance which we haven't seen this season from them.
Yeah, there's three things that make me nervous here, mate, to be honest. First of all, like you said there, Sheffield United, no win to the name this season. They played well in some games for periods, but without reward, and the finishing's been quite poor. But you just know, don't you? I think Ciaran said to us a few weeks ago, you can bet your bottom dollar where Sheffield United's first win of the season is going to be. And it'd just be our luck, obviously, if it was on Thursday. So that makes me nervous. The other thing that makes me nervous is how often does it feel that when other teams do mess up, we often don't capitalise. So when the results go our way, you usually find if that happens on a weekend, we usually don't go and do our job. So that makes me nervous that everybody else has dropped points. So can we capitalise on that? And three, just because it's United this season, and you just don't know what you're going to get game to game. And I think it doesn't really matter how well Sheffield United are playing or not. It's one of those games, the players are going to have to be up for it, because you can question Sheffield United's quality at times this season, but one thing you won't be able to question under Wilder is their effort, their commitment, and their energy. And I think someone said earlier, I think they're second in the league for distance covered and the meters that they've run this season. So, they're going to be hardworking. They're going to put their bodies on the line. So, even though they struggled, it's not the type of game United could just rock up to and say 3 points. So we're going to have to be on our game still.
Yeah, that's really well summarised. Marc, I'm going to come to you first for the first topic. We're going to talk about rivals dropping points. Now, this is a really, really big game for Man United, especially what we've seen. We've seen Southampton be fantastic. Arsenal obviously losing. Chelsea have lost the last 2 games. Title chasing Chelsea. You've got Man City who just aren't firing at all. I mean, now I'm looking at last week's game. I still think United probably could have done more to win that. I think, possibly might look a little bit later down the line and thought maybe that's 2 points dropped, because it isn't really the City that we've seen over the past few years. But it's a really strange season, and Man United haven't really played very well. I can really count 3 performances where I thought United were fantastic. It could be the Everton game. I thought we were very good. I thought we were fantastic against PSG, the one that we won, and fantastic against Leipzig. But looking at it now, you've got to be thinking to ourselves that if United can get a run together, and Ollie can get this front line firing a bit more, and we can stop leaking goals, silly goals, why can't we be in the mix, after Christmas time?
Yeah, we absolutely can. I think it's, I think it's a good thing that we haven't really hit any second gear yet. We've still not hit any consistency. So you have to really ask the question that if we do and start to get a run of form, then we could get points and absolutely climb the league. And as you say, it's been a mad one so far. You can't really call any results at all. It's completely gone against the grain of everything. It's a strange one for me, because we were confident against City going into the City game, but then against teams like Sheffield United, there's a lot more uncertainty and there's a lot more less confidence. the results have been bizarre over the last couple of days as well, and obviously with Arsenal losing as well, it's always good to see. And hopefully we hit the ground running, we come out and we start to get. Everyone's going to be aware that they're going to be more aware than us, regardless. So I really hope that Ollie's sort of drilled into them that tomorrow night it's completely in their hands. And they've only got a point, as Ciaran said, and really we should. You're absolutely right as well that if we can't be beating teams like that and they don't turn up as prime Barcelona, then we've got a real problem. So hopefully we get the 3 points tomorrow night, and hopefully when we next have a discussion, we'll be happy.
Yeah, for me, it's an interesting one because, look, we have said at the start of the season that there's always going to be big teams dropping points this year, but just the way the league's going, where we have to fit in all of those. Look, you have to fit in the 10 months into 9. So teams that aren't able to kind of rotate as much, you're going to drop points. And that's the problem. That's what we're seeing now. It starts hitting into where you're having some of these teams that are playing two or three games within 1 week, and you see the difference. Just wait until Christmas time as well, which we'll talk about later on. Teams are going to struggle. We're going to see this is the period that teams tend to drop points anyway. You look towards the end of December, and there's always some surprise results. The problem has always been, like you mentioned, Haider, is really since Fergie, we've never capitalized on any of our rivals dropping points, ever. I think every single time we've had a chance to get, whether it's top 4, Champions League, something, when one of our rivals has dropped points, so have we. And
last season, I think 14 times when Chelsea dropped points, United also dropped points.
So this is the problem, is the players need to, honestly, the players have to forget what happens. I don't really want them listening to what's going on in the Premier League today or yesterday, because it's irrelevant, because if United don't win, it doesn't matter. So realistically, I think other teams dropping points, it's great because the league is so close, but the problem, and one of the comments said it, we're not consistent either. We're going to drop points. We're never going to be able to, it's just the way we are. We don't pick up points against teams we're supposed to. And then suddenly we have a result against a team that we're expecting to either lose or draw against. That's kind of the nature of Manchester United the last couple of years. We don't take advantage of when we actually have that chance to push up. You look at it now. Let's say Tottenham and Liverpool, there's no winner there if it's a draw. And if the results stay the same, if United win their game, they're 1 or 2 points off top, something like that. So, and they'd have a game in hand. So it's one of those that they really need to capitalize now, because look, you're playing against Sheffield United. There's no excuse not to win that game. Yes, like Joe said, Sheffield United, they're a really hard-working team. The problem is they don't have goal scorers in their team.
They can't put the ball in the back of the net.
If you score against Sheffield United, all you have to do is be average defensively, and you're going to win the game. So all we need to do is make sure that we can get that first goal. It'll be very similar to after lockdown. If we score early, it'll be a fairly straightforward game. That's what we did the first time. If we don't score early and it gets later on in the game and we have to push up, that's when we actually give them a chance to nick a goal. And that's the last thing we need.
Yeah. I mean, for me, normally, I'm not a footballer, so it's difficult. But I think at this stage of the season, it's all about not even looking at the table normally. It's about just trying to win games, trying to clock up as many wins as you can up until Christmas. And then sort of after New Year, that's when you start looking at the table and start, maybe thinking, if they could lose here, they could lose there. But it's hard not to look at the table, because it's just interesting to see who's up there at the moment, isn't it? I mean, obviously, Southampton, but they're 1-1 now. They were winning, and they would have gone top of the table with that win. So, I mean, it's quite intriguing. But, yeah, I mean, if you'd have asked me at the start of the season that United would be this close to Liverpool, this many points in front of City, this close to the top of the table, I'd have probably said to you, well, United must have sort of been playing the way they did post-lockdown, and everybody else must be having an off-season. But actually, they're not. And, normally I'd say, well, we're playing at our best and the other teams aren't quite at it. If they up it a little bit, they'll stretch away, so don't get carried away. But you just don't know this season, because nobody really found top gear yet. We know Man United can play a lot better than what they have been already this season. So, look, if they can start getting one of those Ollie runs together, if they can have a 12, 13, 14 game run where they go unbeaten, I mean, that's going to take you into January, February, nearly into March. Mate, I tell you, then if you get to March and you're still only 2 or 3 points off top of the table, then you do start thinking you're in it, don't you? But I think it's too early yet, and I just think there's going to be so many teams vying for that top 4 this season as well. Like, it's not an obvious top 4 this year. It's not an obvious top 6. You know, Southampton are looking to break into it. Leicester will learn from their mistakes last season, I'm sure. And if they're in the position again, they'll do better this time. So I think it's going to be really tricky. Everton have brought themselves into the conversation. It's almost like a top 8 now, if you know what I mean. It could be anybody's top 4 this year.
Yeah, I mean, Lukesh has got a really great point here. It's a psychological thing. When the onus comes on Man United to move up, they falter, and that's the biggest problem. Look, I've always said that this is a talented squad. Yes, there's some deficiencies in it, but it's a talented squad. And what you're seeing, look, it's two things, right? Our rivals aren't firing either, so that's why it is so close. And other teams have taken a step up. But also, United should take two things. They should be happy and disappointed at the fact that if they played better and if we were showing more consistency and better form, we'd be cruising this. But also the positive is we haven't even really got out of second gear. We've shown it in bursts, and we're this close. And like you said, Joe, United put a run together, and I think that's what frustrates me, because I feel like for the first time in years, I'm talking 7 years since Sir Alex has gone, this is our best chance to win the title.
Yeah.
I'm not saying United are going to do it. I agree with you. We're 11 games in. I think it's too early. We have to wait till what happens after Christmas. I think Ciaran said this a while ago, that's when you really get it in terms of looking at the squad rotation, and you can win and lose a title over the Christmas period. So that's what frustrates me about our summer dealings, and also I think the ambition of the board is that if they'd actually got the players that Ollie wanted in the summer, I think United could have easily gone and cruised this league. And it's our best opportunity, Mark. And that's the thing, isn't it? That we have to take this opportunity. We have to play out of our skins. And actually, it might work in our favour that the rest of the media are turning around saying United aren't good enough. They're rubbish. They've got no chance at all, because you're looking over at Chelsea and they're saying the title challengers, they're brilliant. They're going to win the league. United don't have any pressure on them. No one's expecting us to do anything. So actually, that should work in our favour. We just go under the radar. We carry on taking each game as it comes, doing our thing. And you never know. We could be finding ourselves up near the top. I still think it's Spurs and Liverpool's to lose, personally. I think Tottenham are looking scary this year, because I think they can do Liverpool today. Because what Jose does in the big games is what he does all the time. He sits back and puts 11 men behind the ball. He's sitting on the edge of his edge of his penalty box. But the difference is what he didn't have at United. He's got Son and Kane, two of the best forwards in the Premier League and possibly in Europe right now in terms of form. So do you think that it actually will be beneficial that United don't have a lot of pressure on them? And does it worry you a little bit about, as Lukesh said, the psychological thing as well? Because I don't think United's mental strength is something which we can say the side's got a lot of.
No, we don't really have a winning mentality like we did 8 years ago, and I think that has a huge impact. Tottenham do look scary, and I think you're absolutely right that I think it will be probably between Liverpool and Tottenham. But I think we need to believe in the team. As we've already said, we are certainly not playing very well, and we've come out of it with quite a number of points which we probably didn't expect. So that's a good thing. That's a positive thing, and they should really harness that, and hopefully if as you say, they can build up a run of form. We know that Ollie, we've seen it. I know we've seen a lot of inconsistencies, but we've seen it 3 times now where Ollie will get the team together. We will get something behind us, and we will be able to build up a good run. So hopefully that's going to come at the right time. Hopefully we can still continue to get some points on the board. You never know. We will have a good run in between. That's what you got to believe and what you got to hope. And I think it's now's you're absolutely right. The better time than ever. So we just have to see. We have to take it one game at a time. There definitely is as you say, a psychological problem there, but hopefully we can start to build a bit of belief. And And Ollie's probably, as I've said many times, he might not be great at everything, but he's a very good people person. And if it's anyone that's going to be able to rile the team and get them into a positive and can-do attitude, it will be him, and he'll know how to do that. So let's see what happens. Hopefully by Christmas we're in a better position and push on from there.
That's a good point about being a good man manager. But Ciaran, do you not think though that now the pressure should be on Ollie now, because you're looking at what's happening around him? So now he has to, as Joseph says here, our strikers aren't firing at all, and that's a big problem. That's a really big problem. But also it's a positive because United can't score goals. The forwards can't score goals, but when they do, because they will, and Martial will score goals, he'll have a streaky phase 2 or 3 months where he'll score a lot of goals, and then you'll hear Martial's world class, etc. But do you not think that actually now the pressure is now on Ollie a lot more, because he actually needs to get this team firing now? There's not really any excuses because the rest of the league is looking a bit weak as well. United got an opportunity to go to the next level, got an opportunity to challenge. We've got good players, in my opinion. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of firepower. So now, right, United and Ollie needs to get them firing. So now the pressure turns up a little bit internally, but also from the fans, because I think fans are now thinking, and a lot of fans are saying, United can win the league or they can challenge. This is our best chance. It's too early to say, but for me, I'd still say it's our best chance in 7 years. So is it fair for people to put that extra pressure on Ollie now to say, right, okay, you've got to go and beat teams now more convincingly with a better style?
Yeah, it's hard to judge because, like, I can't remember if it was Joe or Mark said earlier that there's not as much pressure because of the other teams, because everyone's still expecting Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea to be the main ones up there. So United can try and improve internally. Because look, we've said it before, the strikers haven't been playing that well. They've scored, like Rashford's gotten some important goals. You've seen Greenwood get an important goal. Martial hasn't really done anything to start the season. They'll improve the form. So it just depends on when it happens. If this can happen pretty soon, then United will put themselves in the position to be involved in a title race. I know you mentioned it earlier that if United are 2 or 3 points behind in whatever it is in January or February, if we were 7 or 8 points behind in January or February, I'd be happy, because you're still involved, because teams can drop points very quickly and you can get in on it. I think, yes, there's going to be pressure on Ollie because it is our best chance, but you have to look at it. It's our best chance because every other season's been woeful because we haven't been good enough. This year, you look at it, you're like, they're not that far off some of the top teams. You look at Man City and United, they're not that much different. The firepower is there, but none of them are actually hitting top form. Defense for City, you probably give them the edge because United have been pretty streaky this year, but it's always been very similar to United that their defense actually tends to improve as the season goes on. You saw it at stages last year where early on it was good and then it got quite bad and then it improved as it went on. Because look, a lot of teams in the Premier League want to press, and they want to press with a lot of intensity. Try doing that for a whole season and it's very hard for a team to do. So you're going to get a couple of games where teams won't be able to play exactly the way they want to because they don't have the firepower and they don't have the legs to do it. You'll see that over Christmas. You'll see probably in that 3rd or 4th game after the Christmas break that there'll be teams that, if you notice the stats of how the distance that they've run, it's going to be a lot less than what you would expect from teams. It happens every single year. That's when the big teams need to kind of take advantage of some of the smaller teams in the league. So that's a big one. I do agree though. This is the year that really you look at it and it's actually a chance for United to progress. You can, even if you don't win the league, just to be involved in some form of challenge is...
Yeah, by March at least, because when have we been able to say that? I've missed the feeling.
Yeah, but this is what the players need, because we talk about the psychological element. None of those players, apart from De Gea, who's in the starting lineup, have ever been in a Premier League title challenge or have won or even come close to it. So, like, at the end of the day, unless the players are in that, they're not going to know how to react, and they're never going to get over that hump until they're actually in it. Look, I think we can all agree our team probably isn't good enough to actually win a title, but to even be involved in it, I'm fine with others saying our team's not good enough because it means that we don't have to put this extra pressure that we have to win this year because we're not expected to. But really, you've seen it. All you have to do is have some form of consistency throughout the year. Like you look at the way we performed from January till the end of the season. If we can replicate something similar to that this time from January to the end of the season, you'll see United be involved in that kind of top three. And that's really all you can ask them now. Where you mentioned that, yes, I think the two favourites are probably Spurs and Liverpool. I still give a big edge to Liverpool because Spurs, while we've mentioned Kane and Son plenty of times, but how many of those games have they played where they score that goal and then literally don't have another shot on target for almost the rest of the game? Overall in the season, that comes back to bite you because you're not going to win all those games because there will be teams that will be able to attack you and be able to score. And we've seen it. Spurs have gotten a couple of good goals where I think it was against Brighton, where Brighton were pretty good and they got that lucky goal at the end. Liverpool, when you look at them, they still look the class above everybody else in the Premier League. They have frailties this year, but they still look like the top team going towards into December anyway, even with Van Dijk not being there.
Yeah, great point. So I'm going to read out a few comments before I come to Joe. Helly is right. These results should serve as a huge motivator for the guys. There's more pressure now, I think, because everyone else is dropping points, especially within the fan base. If United, I mean, I think the expectations have gone up for myself personally. I'm talking about myself. That looking around the other teams dropping points and looking at our squad and what we are, I think what a lot of fans maybe, or the reason why they expect more is because of the fact of the run that we went on at the end of last season. We've seen the level and we've got a better squad now. There's more players that come in. We're not necessarily weaker. So I think that's what frustrates a lot of fans, that we've seen that. And now we want to see that consistency. I mean, Green Devil here. Yeah, it's time we start taking advantage of these positive positions we find ourselves in. We've got to stop being the maybe men and get it done by winning these 2 games in hand. Absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't put that better. And Lokesh is saying here, the way the season is going, it just looks like the champions may end up with 80 to 85 points. Look, I honestly think that we've got the most informed player in the league, Bruno Fernandes. And that counts for a lot because he's putting up numbers. Now, Joe, it's about finding the right combinations in the team. I don't think we found the right combinations in attack. I don't think we find, in my opinion, the right combination to play in the double pivot. I don't think we found the right combination at fullback either because I think Wan-Bissaka's become a little bit of a liability. So all these things put together, it does seem like it's going to be difficult for United to do that. But on the other hand, you're looking at teams around you. Arsenal, Gabriel's been sent off. Arsenal look like they're going to be, well, they're in disarray. For me right now, they're in a relegation fight. Chelsea as well are a strong side, but when it comes to a big side, they struggle. So what does Ollie have to do now then to get United playing consistently? What would you do? 3 things that you would do.
Just quickly on Arsenal, as another famous Irish person said, not Ciaran. I think they'll have just enough to stay up this year, so I think they'll be all right, Haider. But yeah, no, look, they need to do the things that you said, Haider. They need to find combinations all around the pitch. I've said this before, like even last season and earlier this season. For Ollie now, the next step in his development as a coach is knowing who plays well with who and finding those combinations. Look, mate, do you remember that famous saying that Alan Hansen said, you can't win anything with kids? Well, if we win the league this year, we might look back and say, do you remember what that idiot on the FS said? Fat boy, slimmer, grave sooner. She can't win anything with Paul Pogba, mate. So, look, you know what I mean? There's
Listen, listen for me, Joe. He a lot of people won't like to hear this. Paul Pogba is very key. Getting him in, if he's playing in form, he's very key to where United finish. Because if he starts playing poorly again, then what you're going to see is negativity from the fan base. You know, he's going to be targeted. It's going to bring a dark cloud around United. If he starts playing well again, United will be a much better side for me, and then they'll look much more threatening as well.
I probably doubted Paul Pogba more than anyone on this. I've not seemed to talk about it much, but in my own personal view, I probably doubted Paul probably more than most on here, and I don't mind saying it, but actually over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you look at his performances and the way he's come good, I think he now has shown that he can play a role in different formations. Whereas before, I actually thought the way Ollie wanted to play in the different formations Ollie was using, I just couldn't, any one of those that Ollie played, I just didn't see a place for Paul Pogba. But now I see a place for Paul Pogba in a 4-2-3-1. I see a place for Paul Pogba in a diamond midfield on that left-hand side.
Where do you see him in a 4-2-3-1? Because I think this is I'll come around with everyone, but where would you be playing?
In the games against Old Trafford against the so say we were playing Sheffield United tomorrow night at home, I would actually be happy to see Paul even do that as a double pivot in the two. But actually, when you play better sides, if he can keep this form going, you'd be happy playing on that left of a three even as well. You know what I mean? And if you can't play Bruno, we know he can play that number 10 role. We hope he can. He hasn't shown, but we know he's got the attributes to do it. He's got the ability to do it. And his form at the moment, whether you like him or you don't, whether you rate him or he doesn't, he deserves to be in the team at the moment, I feel. And you have to give him credit for that. I was one of the people that said when Raiola's comments come out, if he doesn't want to be here, we need to look at other options and things like that. But obviously, when someone's playing well, why cut your nose off to spite your face, as the saying goes? You know, why spite yourself of the opportunity when you like you say, this season is a 1 in a million opportunity for us to be in a title race? And I think Ciaran makes a great point when he says it'll be valuable experience for United no matter what happens this season now. You know, if they can be involved in a title race up until the last 5-10 games of the season, they'll learn so much from it. And there's no right and wrong way of winning a league. You know, if you're a United fan and you've watched the Premier League over all these years, you know they've won the league many different ways, Haider. They've won the league.
I couldn't care less if you won 1-0 to the end.
Exactly. You know, they've won a league coming from 14 points behind Newcastle. They've won a league being miles ahead and then just getting over the line. They've messed up leads similar to Newcastle in the past. I mean, when City won it on goal difference, I think at one stage, what was something? We were a ridiculous amount of points in front.
We were about 8 points ahead. There was 8 points between. We were 9 points behind City. Then we did the swing where we went ahead, and obviously then the famous Aguero goal. But
because I often sit here and think to myself, God, if we'd have had an actually good start, if we'd have won the games we should have won, we'd have done better at home. Think where we'd be now, kind of thing. But that wouldn't guarantee us winning the league, because whether you're in front right now or not, there's such a long way to go. But I do think, going back to your original question, mate, it's all about finding those combinations. It's about finding that correct double pivot. And I don't think there is a right answer at the moment, because we all thought it was Fred and McTominay. But we've even seen them struggle at times recently. So
I think if United want a challenge, they can't play them together. That can't be.
You're not going to have the goals in the team, and this is why I think they won't. But I think they'd be silly not to be looking at getting a good DM in January, or at least getting the win, because I think a DM unlocks the balance of this team.
Yeah,
I've said it before. A hybrid of a Pogba and a Matic, or a McTominay and a Fred. One person that can do that job instead of two means that it frees up. You can get another attacking player in your team, which means goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read out Helly's comment here, and then come to you, Mark. Pogba's been good lately, playing him on the left, such a difference in his performance. What was interesting is that when we saw the performance against and the formation against City, I thought it was a sort of a 4-4-2 diamond. When United went to like a 4-2-2, Bruno was on the right and Pogba was on the left in the second half, which was actually working quite nicely. But when you look at who scored, Mark, it was almost a 4-3-1-2 or a 4-3-3, where Bruno was playing as a false nine and you had Greenwood and Rashford on either side. So Ollie's clearly trying to find ways to put Pogba and Bruno in the same side. But what would you be doing? It's a difficult one. What would you be doing for the front line? Because United need Martial to start banging in some goals. That is so key, because look, Cavani's not going to be able to play week in, week out. We know that. We've got 2 games a week now till the end of mid-January. I think that's what it is. So, and Ollie needs to find the right combination. Now, what would be your preferred front three? And guys, chuck it in the comments as well what you think United's preferred front three should be, because I think it's time you need to get Mason back on that right wing, in my opinion, and get him playing week in, week out now again, because he's shown at the end of last season that he's still United's best option for the right wing. Is it time that we start looking to blood in Pellistri, who's playing very, very well at the moment, and he's scoring a few goals in there? Is it time that we look at Ethan Laird as well on the right back, because he's looking like he's filled out, as Ciaran said the other day in group chat, and he's looking. We need more attacking threat. So what would you be doing with that front three? Or would you be going with Cavani and then rotating him with Martial?
Yeah, exactly that. I would have Martial starting some weeks, Cavani starting other weeks, depending on what you needed to play. But I think you're absolutely right with Mason putting back on the right, Rashford on the left, or the other way around. And we've seen it before after lockdown. That's exactly what we were doing. And at that point, we weren't asking the question about Bruno and Pogba whether they could play together. They were doing very well. I feel that really, as you've already touched upon, Joe, with the defensive midfielder, I think that is a big thing. We spoke about this the other day, Ciaran, didn't we, with James? A defensive midfielder is a huge thing. Whether they look for someone in January, probably not, but they really do need to get someone in. They need a Matic 5 years younger. I feel like if you're going to play Pogba in the double pivot, you have to have him next to Matic because it allows him to roam
100%.
forward. And I agree with Fred as well. They're quite similar players, really, Fred and Pogba. I think Pogba's better from an attacking point of view, but they're quite similar. They're quite flair players. They like to drive forward, but I feel that they can only really do that with Matic next to them. I don't think it works with McTominay. I don't think it works with anyone else. So
with Fred and McTominay together.
yeah, exactly. So I think you're absolutely right. Though I think those three. Yeah, we need Martial to find his form. He's had a couple of weeks out. He's been injured. Hopefully now you're absolutely right. He's streaky, and hopefully he's going to come back and start banging in goals. You want it to be a problem where you don't know who to start. Cavani's obviously played very well recently. He's now injured, but hopefully he'll come back and continue to do what he does best. And hopefully Martial, by all accounts, he's had a decent couple of training sessions, and he's probably going to start tomorrow. So let's hope that he's going to go in and hit the ground running, because we need that. As we've already spoken about, this is a big opportunity now. This is something where we need everyone to come out of their first gear, find their second gear, and move on. So let's hope that they can do that tomorrow. Martial being one of the biggest ones there.
Really well said. And that's the thing, Mark, isn't it? That I think United fans, two things. I'm not preaching. This is just my opinion. United fans need to turn around and say, right, okay, there is quality in this squad. We need to actually acknowledge that, because the excuses to me don't wash anymore. A lot of money's been spent. When you have the likes of Bruno and Pogba with the opportunity to bring Van de Beek off the bench, that's a strong squad in a lot of the key areas, in my opinion. We're lacking a defensive midfielder, and I think that's what will ultimately undo United. I don't expect United to win. I expect us to challenge, because I think there's quality there. And obviously there's talks about centre-back. Will Upamecano come? Probably not, Bayern Munich. But the point is that there are 2 or 3 key areas that need to be strengthened. But actually, United can score a lot of goals, but they're not doing that right now. So getting Martial to score is key. But it's an interesting comment here from Lakesh. Just a speculation. But with Favre gone, wouldn't it be easy to get Sancho now? If we do get him, there is a stronger chance of Pogba staying. Not at all. I think that's probably sort of a binary way of looking at it. It's sort of putting 2 and 2 and getting 7. For me, look, Dortmund made a mistake, and I'll come to you, Joe, because you've got a comment on this. Dortmund made a mistake not selling him, and I think Ciaran mentioned that in the summer. They're not going to get the same fee. And I tweeted out earlier, I said, look, James Sancho is still, for me, should be one of the main targets for Man United, because yes, we got Diallo, yes, we got Pellistri. They're not ready. They'll do it in bursts, but not ready to start at right wing for Man United. Looking at Jadon Sancho, still a very talented player, great talent, great end product. He's not suddenly a bad player overnight. And a lot of people saying, oh, well, look, yeah, he's not very good anymore. No, he would still take this United side to another level. So that would be one of the key areas I'd be looking at as well still. We're not going to go and get Haaland, but I think we really need that right wing. But what were you going to say, Joe, about Favre? You're on mute, by the way, mate, so I'm just going to let you know before you start talking. Go on, mate.
Thanks for the heads up, mate. It's much better when you tell me before
well
I don't start chatting on mate. No, I mean, look, like a lot of us in here, I do follow Dortmund a little bit. Until this summer, I used to treat them as my second club, really. I used to love Borussia Dortmund, but they really peeved me off a bit this summer, as I think they did a lot of United fans. No, I just think the whole thing with Favre, if anything, it probably makes it a little bit harder for United, because from all accounts, from what I've heard and what you see in the media, I don't think the relationship was too great with Sancho and Favre. I used to hear stories of, Sancho being late for training, being sluggish, late arriving.
Well, he kept calling him out as well, and he kept on dropping him at the end of last season. So this could work in his benefit.
the worst nightmare for United now is if someone like Marco Rose comes in the summer, or if someone or whoever comes in and gets that job. It does look like Marco Rose. I think you was telling us the other day, doesn't it? From Russia. If he's the type of manager that's going to embrace Sancho and he's going to make him the main man there, then obviously that makes it difficult. I think a lot of the reason why United had a chance this summer was all to do with Haider, to be honest. I think that contributed in Sancho's thinking of a new challenge. It wasn't like he had a manager there that was going to make him stay. And I think, the manager wanted him to stay, but Sancho wasn't convinced on the manager, if you know what I mean. So I think that played into United's hands as well, which was another reason I was surprised the deal wasn't done, because it wasn't as if he had a really loving coach that wanted him to really stay, if you know what I mean. I think Favre wanted him there because he knew it was key to his own job, if you know what I mean. Someone like Sancho is the type of player that can save you your job, isn't he? Because he can do... I think Sancho has saved Favre's job, because there's been a few times since Favre has got the job. I've said Favre a lot here, haven't I? But there's been a lot of times since Favre has got the job.
Another thing as well, though, Joe, to add to that, Lukash's comment was saying, would it make a stronger chance for Pogba to stay?
Well,
I think these sort of things are I think fans think that, if a player comes in, this will make a player stay. I think Pogba was wanted to leave. We've known for a long time. It doesn't matter if you bring in Ronaldo. Pogba still wants to go. He doesn't want to be at Manchester United.
The more better players you bring in is probably to your detriment with Pogba, Haider, because it means he's not necessarily the star man. We've seen the rumours coming out that a lot of the reason he wants to move now is because Brunos come in and done so well, and he almost become the main man, and Pogba doesn't like that. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But that's
very selfish, that really, isn't it?
So I think that
I don't think that's true. If I'm being honest with you, I think that's all that sort of paper talk. I think players at the end of the day, you got to remember as well, Pogba's a very influential person in the dressing room.
Yeah.
So either way, I think he's got a lot of respect. I think it's more to do with the position that he's playing. I think he wants to, not even position he's playing, he wants to play regularly. And at the moment, he's not. And when you're behind Fred and McTominay, who've done really well, but they're limited, I think that's why he's upset more than Bruno coming in and playing number 10. I don't think Pogba's saying, I want to play number 10. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way I read it.
I would like to think that if someone like Bruno's come in and had the impact that he has, Pogba should be happy, because Pogba came to this club to win titles and to win trophies. And if there's one player that we've invested in the last, since Pogba joined, that can help us do that, it's Bruno Fernandes. So you can't get that and then not back. And Sancho doesn't affect Pogba's place in the team. Someone like Sancho coming in doesn't mean Pogba's going to have to move to a different position, because he plays in a completely different area. The biggest concern I have with the whole Pogba transfer is, what message does that send to other players who we want to buy? I think that's the bigger question.
Yeah, it looks worth it, Pogba leaving, doesn't it? Yeah,
like it or not, Paul Pogba is a big personality. He's a big player, talented player. And when one player like that leaves a club, what does it say about that club? You look at how Arsenal have exiled Ozil, probably their most talented player on the day. So if you're not going to play him, what does that say about the direction of your club?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm going to read out some comments, Ciaran. Now I want your opinion on that. The Green Devil, we had this discussion on Twitter, didn't we, the other day? But you said that you felt it was interesting. Pogba played his preferred position right after the agent talk. I wondered, did he and Ollie talk? I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a new contract. Look, I think it's very possible he signs a new contract. One, I think he's got that 1 year extension that he can trigger, or maybe that's been triggered already. But also, two, who can afford him? Who can buy him? And look, it's going to have to be a swap deal. It won't be Real Madrid. It could be PSG. It's going to probably be Juventus. Now, they're probably going to try and offer Dybala, who doesn't want to come. I would do anything for Paulo Dybala. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I think if United are looking for someone with a bit of quality, if they can find a way to fit him in the side, it's debated where he plays. If United are going to play maybe a false nine sort of position, which Bruno's been doing quite a lot, I think Dybala plays that role very, very well with two strikes, a bit like Liverpool, the way that Firmino drops. But everyone's putting their comments in here. Lukesh is saying with his favoured front three, Martial left, Mason central, Marcus right. Interesting, because a lot of people have been saying Mason's central as well. So did Heli. Exactly the same. Marcus on the right. Green Devil. Sorry, guys, I've got something in my throat.
They're so interchangeable, those three, aren't they? So you could put them in any position, really. I know some have a better position than others, but they're all valid points. They're all valid.
Absolutely. Green Devil, Rashford, Cavani, Greenwood, Martial as a sub. I'd be giving Rashford the rest, Ciaran. He does not look right. He's not played well recently. He's carrying an injury. We all know that. I just feel like with this front three, it worries me still. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a downer, but I don't see the combination. I don't see what the first choice is or what's going to work. And if we can't get that sorted, if we're rotating, and that's why I want to talk to you about rotation. Rotation is important. I think we've over-rotated. I think Ollie's tinkered a bit too much. Maybe in the mind with Christmas coming up. But what would you say to the front three? Like, what would you preferred one? And what's your view on the rotation? Because Ollie's got to do this really cleverly, hasn't he? But otherwise, you could A, lose momentum, or two, you could get injuries.
Yeah, it's tough because, look, I think the most fluid front three that we have is Mason, Martial, and Rashford. There's a couple of issues there, though. Against certain teams, that's not going to work because you need someone getting in behind, and that's where you have Cavani to come in. Making that change is perfectly fine to rotate. That's no issue. What you said is completely right. Rashford hasn't been fully healthy in a very long time. He's been injured pretty much most of his Manchester United career. And for him to score the amount of goals that he has, considering some of the injuries, is very, very impressive. But look, he does need to have that bit of a break. To say what your preferred front three is depends on kind of what you want out of it. Do you want like long-term success? If that's what your kind of plan is, then I think it's very obvious that you probably need to put Mason in more centrally, because if he's the one that you're going to be, let's just say, look, I know a lot of us wanted Haaland, but that's not going to happen with Raiola. So if the next thing is you want Mason to be your striker, well, then you probably need to use him as the center, as your main central forward. And then in other games that you don't think that, let's just say it's against a real strong team or a strong defensive partnership that you don't think he's going to suit him too well, you play Cavani in those games, and you're going to have to use Martial and Rashford on the two sides. Let's say United were planning with Juventus to have a Pogba for Dybala swap, because it's the only one that's been anyway credible, I think, that's come out, because before those comments from Raiola, there were reports that United were looking around Dybala again. So if that's the case, well, then you're going to play very similar to how Liverpool play their front three, where you are going to play Dybala the way Firmino plays, but then that does create space for the two wide players. So then you need to try and see, well, does that work if you use someone like Mason to drop in? Because he does drop back, but he will get into the box as well. His problem is just to hold up play, because he hasn't had a chance to do it because he doesn't play enough.
That was exactly my point. I was going to say that. Can United risk playing Mason? There's two things I want to ask you, Ciaran. So firstly, with Martial, now a lot of people saying playing Martial on the left, and I do agree with that because he runs the channel better than Marcus. Marcus has been hugging the touchline, and for some reason, I'm not sure why he's doing that, and that's affected Tellez actually going forwards, because Tellez can't overlap properly. But the other thing when it comes to Martial is defensively and doing the tracking back, he doesn't do that well enough. But then, can you blame him when he's been told, right, you're the number 9, you're going to play number 9, this is your role? He's been playing like a number 9, then he's been shifted out to the left for Cavani. You can understand for Cavani. If it's for Mason, you know, Martial's going to throw a strop because Martial's done that in the past. And can United effectively, do they have enough time? Is there enough time? Is it too risky for them to say, right, Mason, because you're still the best finisher at the club, you're going to play number 9, but he doesn't hold the ball up well enough at all. And I don't think it's necessarily he'll do that in maybe 5 to 10 games. I just think he's not physically there yet. You know, he's still only 19.
Well, I agree to a certain point. Now, if that's a problem with Martial, that if he would throw a strop because they wanted Mason to play there, well, then you see that he's not a team player. And that's when you have to have questions about him. And look, like you said, we have seen it before when he was, but you want to think that that's when he was a bit younger and everything was going well at United, and suddenly Zlatan comes in. You would expect him to be a little bit different now. The only thing is, I do think with Mason is that he does need experience doing it, because when you actually look at the body type of Mason, Greenwood, and Martial, there's not that much of a difference. The difference really for me is early on in Martial's career when he played centre forward, he couldn't hold the ball up. He just wouldn't do it. And then after time, he got better at it. Like, you look at Martial before the lockdown, he was terrible at holding the ball up. And then suddenly we're seeing him improve on it. So obviously it's something that during that time off, that was part of his training regime to start working on that. And obviously he has. The problem is Martial's good at it, but that's only compared to our strikers and our forwards. If you put him in another team, he's not to the level that you actually need a centre forward. And that's why we constantly talk about bringing in centre forward. So, look, I think while we're still in, as we say, this title race, you probably have Martial at centre forward or Cavani, and you have Mason and Rashford on either side. If you start dropping out of that, I think that's when you make the switch. I think that's when you put Mason there, because you're like, okay, we need to figure out what we want to do long term. Long term, Mason Greenwood is a striker. He's not a winger. And really, the sooner that United get him into playing the position they want him to play in, the better it'll be. Look, you were right at the start. Mason has to play, because you can't expect an 18 or a 19-year-old to come in on a couple of games and be the excellent player that we know he can be if he's not playing games. He needs to play. When we saw him play week in, week out after lockdown, he was one of our best players. There's going to come to a stage where those front three are going to start playing well again. Personally, I think this is a perfect game to do it, where you can play Pogba, you can play Mason, you can play Bruno, all in the same team, because look, whether we like it or not, Sheffield United are not going to attack us with the firepower we've seen in recent weeks. And it's the perfect time to get some of these players back into playing and playing regularly. You'll see more rotation because of the Europa League as well. You'll see Mason, he'll play at centre forward in the Europa League.
You reminded me about the Europa League.
Yeah. But look, like I said, we don't want to be there, but there are positives to it. Because look, our team isn't ready to win trophies like the Champions League or the Premier League yet. So you need to use this time now to start improving on it. So in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, that you're putting yourself in that position. If there's the plan that Martial's not going to be here for the long term and he's the short term solution, I think that's where you start making the change, because we've gone 7 years trying to do the short term answer. Now we actually, under Ollie, I think it's changed a little bit, where we've kind of looked for the long term. But that's where I think we need to be focusing on. We can't just be focusing on this year or next year. Our team is good enough to compete no matter what way you put those forward players, because like Joe or Mark said, they're interchangeable. You can start Rashford on the left and suddenly he'll be coming up on the right. Same with Martial. They're all able to play each of those positions. Same with Cavani. So it doesn't really matter. The only time it matters is who gets in those positions at the right time. And personally, the only players that have are Cavani and Mason. And that's a big issue when Solskjaer came in, he wanted Rashford to be the striker and then Martial, but you don't see them getting in those positions. But you do see Mason Greenwood and you do see Cavani get in there. You look at the games and they're the only ones that have really made those forward runs or had the forward chances. The problem is with Mason, I think he just needs a bigger run in the team.
Yeah, good points. Guys, I'm going to come to Mark and Joe for the final points. Mark, anything to add to that or anything that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, not tonight. I just really hope that we get 3 points tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to the game. And I really want to see exactly what Ciaran's just spoken about. I think he's absolutely right. It is the perfect game to go up against someone that isn't scoring, to be able to get a clean sheet, defend well, and really play the players that are going to progress the ball forward and get some goals. And hopefully that will enable Martial to get a goal, Greenwood to maybe find some form, and go from there. So we'll have to see for tomorrow night.
Can I just put 1 point? We've gone 49 minutes and 25 seconds, and Mark has not mentioned Donny van de Beek yet.
I've been thinking about him. I've been thinking about him the whole time.
Hopefully in a PG way. Hopefully.
Yeah.
always.
I just want to say on the striker conversation as well, just to add one final point. I think one thing that they all lack and one thing that they all need to improve is their ability in the air. And I think if you're going to be a good number 9, a good centre forward, whether it's going to be Martial in the long term, short term, Greenwood in the long term, short term, they have to be better in the air. Not so much because they can score goals like that, but it gives us another outlet for our attack. I mean, so often you see United attacking and trying to go through the middle all the time, because that's where they're threatening. it'd be nice sometimes. I'm not saying sort of David Moyes against Fulham, was it, where there was the odd crosses, but
or Arteta at the moment.
I just feel like we do score goals from crosses. That we'd be wrong to say we don't, because obviously Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka
not enough,
but not enough. And I think it'd just give us another string to our bow. But you're not going to cross the ball into the box too often aerially when you've got the like Martial and Greenwood in there, because I mean, especially Greenwood, bless him, his heading, he just sort of leaps for it. It just doesn't sort of head. Martial's had a couple of good headed goals, but Rashford's not the kind of person who wants to put his head on the ball either. So I think it's something that if all three of them have got aspirations of playing, as a centre forward, they need, to improve in the air, I think, as well.
What I will add to that, I mean, Greendale's got a good point. Martin and Rashford, what are their best positions? Yeah, Leeds are winning 5-2. I did see that actually as well. That was another thing I wanted to add. No, what I will say, sort of my final word on it is that what are their best positions? I would agree. It's really difficult because I think as a forward, you have to be able to do the defensive side of it as well. That's key. So you're putting your forwards out there, right? And you're saying, you can't just say to them, Mark, you're typing away, mate.
Sorry, mate.
No, so my biggest problem is that they're not rounded. They're not all rounded. Not like you look at Liverpool's forwards. And I know they're on a different level and they're further down the line in their development, but you're looking at it and you can't say with any of United's forwards, they're both good defensively and going forward. Not one of them. There's so many deficiencies on either side. You say with Rashford, he's direct. He can score goals, but his decision making is not up to scratch. Martial, you say you question his work rate. Is it up to scratch? Mason's very young. He's a fantastic finisher, but again, the hold up play. Cavani, proper number 9, but he's old. So these sort of things, and that's the biggest problem. That when you want to coach them, there are certain things that they need to be doing a little bit better. For example, I don't think that they press well enough together. I don't think they act as a unit together. So there's all these things. And then that's the question. Ciaran, I'll come to you for this final point then, because this is a question I ask a lot of my mates who are United fans. Are the players just not good enough? Or are they not being developed to the right level? Because I think there's a lot of talent there. But then also, I have thought recently, has he really developed the player we want to be? No, and it's not his fault. He's had 2 defensive managers. But is the talent actually there? Have we just got overexcited as United fans? With Marcus Rashford, very good player, but is the talent actually there to be one of the best? I think Mason's the only one for me. I look at and think he can go right to the top.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Rashford's a very, very good player. I think for him, it's been one of those where he needs to settle into that position, stay in it, and actually, Rashford's problem has always been the same, even since when he was at the youth level. It's been his composure in front of goal. We've seen it. If you can go back and look at youth levels, the reason he wasn't one of the favourites to kind of come through, because he was this kind of speedy player, but he wasn't scoring as much. And that's why a lot of people were surprised when he actually got his chance and took it. And when he scored in the first 2 games, I think a lot of people were surprised. The problem I have with Martial is that I do think that we've overrated him a little bit because of just how good people think he is. For me, the problem with Martial and Rashford is they probably don't have a set position. While you look at Mason, you're like, in a couple of years, I can easily see him being a centre forward. With Rashford and Martial, you see them as inverted wingers, but the problem is United don't really want to play with inverted wingers. I can see Rashford playing as a winger because he's more direct than Martial is. It doesn't mean Martial's not a good player. He is. I don't know if he fits the style of play that Manchester United want to play. And that's why there's been rumors, and I know it hasn't been completely all around social media and stuff, that Martial might not be at United for the long term. And it seems crazy because he has been one of our better performers. But when you actually step back and look at it, does he fit the long-term plan at United in terms of the position they want him to play? And personally, I don't think so, because if you bring in Jadon Sancho, how are you going to fit in Jadon Sancho, Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, Cavani, and you wanted to bring in Haaland? One of those players was planned on not being at Manchester United
It was
in the
definitely
long term. It was Martial. There was look.
Unless Martial was going to play on the left with Rashford, and then we're going to rotate.
Yeah, look, there was rumors around the club, and there was a lot of people that kind of had close contacts that there were kind of signs that Martial wasn't going to be there in the long term, and I can understand it. I don't like it because he's a very good player, and you don't really want to get rid of good attacking players, because I said it with the Dybala rumors. The more good attacking players you have, the better. You saw it when City were at their top, was that they literally had about 3 players for every single attacking position. And that's kind of what you want. The problem is that if Martial and Rashford aren't playing well, we don't look that well offensively. You need someone like, not to the same level as Bruno, but to have those consistent performances and those consistent kind of, not even performances, but like what they get out of the game. So even though when Bruno plays bad, he gets an assist or he gets a goal. You need that. We've had it over the years where we've had a striker play terribly, but they've still scored.
That's why Mo Salah is actually so good. I know he plays for Liverpool and we hate him. He's so consistent. He's always affecting the game, whether it's an assist or a goal. And that's what United need, don't they, in that front line? Because the problem is that too many of them go missing. Too many of them will go on a 5 to 10 game streak of not scoring, and then it's all on Bruno, and he can't do it all. And then Bruno gets frustrated, and then fans get on Bruno's back saying, "Oh, well, his pass completion rate 60%." Yeah, because he's trying to make something happen. Because it's a bit. Joe, you're on mute, mate.
Look at last season, Haider. They scored 60 goals, the 3 of them, and there's something like 4 goals between them up to now after 11 games or something. So therein lies the inconsistent long term. We're not just looking at a small sample sizes. See, we're looking from we're using our eyes, and also we're looking at long term stats here. Last season, their goal output was amazing, but obviously this season, in a season where there's been probably more goals than ever as well. Let's not forget that. They're just not coming up with a goal. Thankfully, obviously, we're getting goals from other areas of the pitch, and with Bruno and stuff, and that's fine. But yeah, I mean, sooner or later you strike. But like you said at the top of the show, mate, it's exciting in a way, because if they do start to fire, then you just wonder where that could take us. And maybe that's a positive note to finish on. But I don't know.
The problem that I have, I think, is you think of United and what is a United goal? You look at Manchester City, and you know what a Manchester City goal is. It's Mahrez or Sterling going past, basically crossing it low into the box and somebody getting. That's why Sterling in the last 2 years was pretty high up there in goals.
And they're not doing that now, are they, Ciaran? They're
not. They're struggling as well.
Their output's gone down as well, mate. You know what I mean?
But like, if you have strikers like Joe, you mentioned earlier, that don't score many goals with their head, well, then that's the type of crosses you need. You need it going right in the face of goal, where someone can get on the end of it. You look at Liverpool, you know how they're going to score on a weekly basis. You look at United, you don't know, because if Bruno doesn't play well, you're like, oh, how are you going to score today? And that's a problem when we talk about 3 players who scored 60 goals and you still don't know. Look, for Mason, if he does his step overs on the right, he'll cut in and score. But do you know that for anybody else? Yeah, that's true. A penalty.
A penalty. Not anymore, though. Now, what I will say, last point, Mark, you got anything to add?
Not tonight, man. I'm very quiet tonight. Got a lot on my mind, but yeah. No.
Yeah, it's getting a bit
worried
deep.
about the Liverpool and Spurs
I
game.
hope you're okay.
I've been a bit poorly today, so I'm just happy to listen. But I'll put in when I've got the 2 pennies.
I'll get back to you on that date invitation. But don't, in the meantime, mate, don't let it bother you. I just need a bit of time to think. That's all.
I told you to be quiet about that.
It's because you got the new fresh trim on the side, Joe, and that he's seeing what he's going to miss.
I'm going for the Jack Grealish, mate.
He's already ditched Tellers.
Players, mate. I think we're going to sign Jack Grealish at some point, so I'm getting in early, mate. After nobody.
Perhaps it's an omen.
You got a Jack Grealish haircut.
No, but what I will say, last point I'll add, because we got to wrap up, guys. But what I will say about this United squad as well is that is a problem, because there's a lot of talent there. So that's where I think sometimes question, what are we doing on the training ground? What is the emphasis on? Because I feel like the emphasis on at the moment, and this is not necessarily the players' fault, but the Spurs result completely rocked Ollie. So for him, I think he's genuinely thinking, right, I need to not concede. So if you're going to play with that mindset, then what's going to happen is going forward, the players will struggle. The offensive players are going to struggle if you're not creating as many chances. But what I will say is that on a positive note, and thank you so much, guys, for all your comments. It's been fantastic. Heli, thank you. The Green Devil, thank you. And to Lakesh as well, and a few of the others. But what I will say, last point, is that United are in a good position where they just need to think about themselves, play well, win your games, be adventurous, show a bit of intensity. That is the biggest thing for me. Show a bit of, I would say, courage as well. Go out there and play and blow teams away and make them worried about what we have to do, not the other way around, because this United side is packed full of quality. So, Ciaran, thank you very much. Joe, thank you. Mark, thank you as always for joining us. Tomorrow, guys, we've got the Masterclass live straight after the game, so it'd be great for you to join us. And we will see you next time.